Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for the new screensavers is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. The new screensavers is brought to you by Lynda.com, the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. For a free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/NSS. That's LYNDA.com/NSS. And by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for a simple payment solution, check out Braintree. With one simple integration, you can offer your customers every way to pay, period. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, go to BraintreePayments.com/NSS. And by NatureBox. NatureBox ships tasty snacks right to your door with over 100 flavors to choose from, like Asiago and cheddar cheese crisps. You'll never get bored of snacking again. Get your first NatureBox on them at naturebox.com/twit.
A car battery that'll never die. Social media is changing politics forever, and El Niño's on the way. Will it save California? Live from the Twit Brick House in sunny downtown Petaluma, California, it's the new Screensavers.
All right, everybody! Welcome to the new Screensavers, episode 17 for Saturday, August 29th, 2015. Great thanks to Commander Jason Grauer. He flies jets for the U.S. Navy. He's out of Hawaii, well, soon to be out of Hawaii, Oahu. Our guy reading the Open. Mike Elgin, good to see you.
Hope we don't bomb like this guy does.
No, he doesn't bomb.
Okay.
He doesn't bomb. He flies C-20s. That's like a Gulfstream. That's
yeah.
He's like he takes the big wigs around, the big shots.
I see.
Thank you for wearing the appropriate attire.
You got to do it, man. You got to do it. It's the Screensavers.
Mike is so well dressed. He always wears a jacket to Tech News Today, Monday through Friday, and you saw how handsome he was in that Segway Open.
It's the Google Glass, really.
You looked like the James Bond of, yeah, he had Google Glass on. Anyway, it's great to have you. Thank you. Is this your first time doing this?
Second time.
Okay,
yes.
Good. Welcome
Grizzled
back.
Grizzled veteran.
I'm grizzled, that's for sure. Let's, what does grizzled mean?
I don't know. It must have something to do with gray facial hair.
Facial hair.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Let's talk a little bit about the news, and we're going to get to our first call for help. Story number one, and this is, you brought this along. I hadn't heard about this.
Yep.
You and I both love our Amazon Echoes.
Yes, we do.
What's new?
Okay, so it's an interesting story because the Wall Street Journal had this huge scoop that they were firing a bunch of employees. Amazon was firing
The Fire Phone people.
The Fire Phone people were fired. Now we know why it's called the Fire Phone.
Yeah.
And
Make it and you'll be fired.
And they buried the lead. So they said all these people are getting fired. They're getting out of the phone business. They're rearranging the whole
That's all I
research lab.
read. So you kept reading the article?
Down said, oh, by the way, they said, quote, still in the works is a high-end computer for the kitchen, codenamed Cabinet. Designed to serve as a hub for internet-connected homes and capable of taking voice commands for tasks like ordering stuff from Amazon.com. This is the computer that I think is the future of the home automation hub. Everybody says it's in the living room, right?
But you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen more than a few kitchen computers come and go.
Yes, yes.
Some big flops.
Well, the very first, a lot of people don't know this, but the very first consumer electronics computer was a kitchen computer in 1969 called the Honeywell kitchen computer.
It was this big.
It was huge. It had built-in, it had not only circuit boards, but a cutting board. They didn't sell any because it was $10,000, which is like $65,000 by today's money. But anyway, so we've always assumed that the hub for home automation is the living room, but that's a terrible place.
We're not the only ones. Google's putting their on hub in the living room. Apple's TV is in the living room.
That's right. That's right.
Amazon wants to put it in
When you go into the living room, you want entertainment. You want to get away from your tasks, your chores. When you're in the kitchen, that's where the family already puts things on the refrigerator.
Right.
That's where you have a bulletin board. That's where you interact with each other.
It is the hub of the family.
It's the hub of the family, and so that's why it should be the hub for home automation as well. So I think the Echo really gave me a lot of confidence in Amazon as a visionary for consumer electronics. The rest of their hardware didn't. But that particular product makes me think, they can do things that even Apple and Google aren't doing. And I think this kitchen computer, if it's an Echo with a screen and a lot of processing power with some hooks into home automation that has an open API, I think that sounds killer.
Yeah, so does Brian Burnett.
That's what killer sounds like.
The Echo's an interesting story because you were the first one I saw. Actually, you used somebody.
I use Anthony's.
It's just a very exciting topic. So.
It really is.
You had
Control
Anthony
yourself.
Nielsen's.
Yes.
Then you bought one.
Yes.
Then I bought one after your stunning review on Before You Buy. When you look at it, it's kind of doesn't really do a lot, but people love it for some reason.
We have what they're calling virtual assistant sprawl now. There are lots of virtual assistants. The difference is that the Amazon Echo has a physical body.
Yeah.
Right? It's there. It's just in the house. You just talk with. You could have your hands full. You could be doing other things. And it's not the best assistant, but it's the best. It's the one I use at home because it's there.
It also feels like the future because you don't feel like you're talking to your phone. You feel like you're talking to your house.
That's right.
And it responds. It's friendly. You know what? I got a second one for the bedroom.
Yeah.
Because I have it read me my books, give me my news. You can ask it what traffic is, and they've just added a couple of new features. One, Smart Things integration. So now I'll be able to say, hey, Echo, turn down the lights and put start the coffee maker or whatever it is. And they also added a feature which I really like, and I just saw this today, that you can have multiple Amazon accounts on there.
Yeah.
So I can now have, Lisa can have it read her books because she has a different Audible account than I do. And I like that feature.
And it knows where you are. If you're reading on your Kindle and you stop at a certain point, it knows to pick it up on the Echo later. The other thing is that they've recently opened up an Alexa API,
right?
And the apps for that haven't hit yet. So when apps come out,
you have. There's one that tells you BART times.
Yes.
And I have a math puzzle app that I could say, give me a math quiz, and it'll give me a quiz.
They also announced this week new partnerships or integrations with home automation devices, like you can control the sprinkler system through voice. You can do things like that.
I'm kind of intrigued by this.
Yeah, so am I.
I don't know. It doesn't do all the things you want it to do, but I feel like there's something there. There's something going on.
Yes, yeah.
On Monday, Mark Zuckerberg posted on Facebook, he said, everybody talks about financial results and everything. This is a number that's meaningful to me. 1 billion users, 1 billion users, 1 in 7 people on Earth used Facebook in a single day. Wow.
Leo, if the President of the United States or the Pope or any single human being wanted to talk to 1 billion people, they couldn't do it. Facebook has the ability to reach 1 billion. That's 1 in 7 people. That's including infants, people in comas. That's including everybody.
People who can't.
I mean, that is so many people.
Yeah.
That is so many people, all using a single service on a single day. It's incredible.
It's no question that the internet and social media is changing the world. It's changing elections. We're going to do a panel a little bit later on.
Yep.
Drew Curtis, who everybody knows, he was on the Screensavers many times. He's the founder of Fark.com, is running for governor of Kentucky. He's on the ballot. We're going to talk with Drew and some experts in social media. One who is a consultant for Rand Paul, another who actually runs a firm that helps candidates with this stuff, about how social media is changing elections. You're going to talk about El Nino, something in California we're concerned about because that's what brings us, or doesn't bring us, the storms. But it's also brought fires to Asia. It's a part of a changing global climate. We'll find out what El Nino is besides the baby. And we've got a guy who figured out how to win thousands of contests on Twitter. He's got a new Indiegogo that may change how you think about your car battery. But first, it's time for a call for help.
Hi, Leo. My name is West. I'm from, at the moment, Berwyn, Illinois, and I was wondering if there was a way to, let me just put it this way. A friend of mine has a questionable copy of Windows 7 Ultimate, and she wants Windows 10, but we're not sure that's a possibility for her since it's not actually registered. Even if I download the ISO for her, is Windows 7 going to break her laptop, or Windows 10 rather, going to break her laptop? Thanks.
A friend of Berwyn.
Yeah, sure.
So I went to a friend of mine, Paul Thurrott, and asked him. He's the expert.
Without going into the province of the acquisition of this operating system, if it can be activated on a PC, and it will have to be before you upgrade, then yes, I mean, you could make sure it's upgraded to SP1 at least, and we get all the updates installed. and then run the upgrade. And then from there, you could reset it or do a clean install of Windows 10. But you could, as long as it's activated, it's good to go for Windows 10.
So by
He
virtue
says
of it being
not endorsing
Right.
piracy.
But by virtue of it being activated, somehow he must have, other he wouldn't be able to use it. He should be able to just go right to Windows 10. And then the good news is, this is now a legitimate copy, and if it's activated, is it tied to his Windows 7?
So, yeah, the way it works is that when you upgrade to Windows 10 from Windows 7 or Windows 8.1, at a successful upgrade, it will put the machine ID up into the cloud. And so every time that machine installs Windows 10, it checks the cloud to see if it was okay before. And once it's okay forever. So if you can get Windows 7 activated and then can successfully upgrade to Windows 10, you're good to go from there on out. You can clean install Windows 10. You could, reset the machine and do it that way, just going forward.
Paul, I feel like Woody Allen in Annie Hall when he said, "You know nothing of Marshall McLuhan's writings. In fact, I have Mr. McLuhan right here. I have Mr. Thurrott right here." And he's got the answer. Thank you, Paul.
Paul Thurrott, the host of Windows Weekly, I asked him during the show because I knew Berwin would have that question. What Berwin didn't tell us is whether his friend is able to use Windows 7 fully or whether she's getting a message every 30 days. And if it's not activated, what you will do is you'll install Windows 10 and you'll get a non-activated version of Windows 10. So you'll have exactly the same situation. It'll just be a new non-activated version.
And also, I think more to the point, they're concerned that the laptop would be bricked. That's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
So worst case scenario is you're going to get an error message or absolute worst case scenario. Nobody's going to knock down your door and arrest anybody, and no laptops are going to be bricked. So I just go for it and hope that it works. And if it works, it works.
Where do you stand? Steve Gibson called Windows, what did he say? A gold-plated turd? It wasn't nice. He said, "I will never use Windows 10 because of the privacy concerns." You were the editor of a Windows magazine. You've dealt with this for years. Do you think Windows 10 is has unusual privacy issues?
I don't think, not coming from Microsoft, I think that it has unusual security issues simply because of the fact that it's the operating system for the world, for the legacy applications and so on. And so there are inherent privacy issues with Windows. And so I don't buy into the Microsoft is spying on you thing or any of that stuff. I just think that if people are going to use Windows, and there are great reasons to use Windows, of course, you have to take extra precautions and use all the best practices. Much more so, there's a whole range of security and privacy issues for all the platforms. Probably the most secure is like a Chromebook.
Right.
And the least secure is probably
Windows 95.
Windows 95 running Internet Explorer. And
XP's probably not good.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're on the dangerous end of the spectrum, you have to work at it a little bit harder. That's all.
What I worry about is that people are going to see this. For instance, you mentioned before the show, BitTorrent sites are refusing Windows 10 users because they're afraid that somehow because you're using Windows 10, it's going to tell Microsoft, and then Microsoft's going to get these torrent sites in trouble. My concern is that people won't upgrade from older, less secure versions of Windows to what is, I'm sure, a more secure version of Windows. Windows 10, it's going to be kept up to date more. If you're using XP, you're not getting updates, et cetera, because they're worried about these privacy issues. When in fact, the privacy issues in using an insecure computer are far, far worse. So I guess upgrade to Windows 10. If you don't like, the truth is, if you're worried about privacy, don't go on the internet. Unplug the computer. Don't have an Ethernet jack. Don't have Wi-Fi on it. You'll be private.
There are lots and lots of products, lots of great products out there for encrypting your messages, for surfing the internet without any
Learn how
trouble.
to use those.
Use those things,
Actually, Denise Howell's coming up in just a little bit with a new tool from the Electronic Frontier Foundation that will help you enforce do not track regulations. And in just a second, we're going to talk about the future of elections with Rand Paul's digital strategist, the founder of a company that helps candidates, Echelon Insights, with this kind of stuff, and our friend Drew Curtis, who is now officially a candidate for governor of Kentucky, a roundtable discussion about politics and the internet. But first, Jono Bacon tells us how to broadcast live with Google Hangouts. Jono?
My name is John Bacon, and I am a community strategist. And one of the most important elements of building a community is to get information out there so people know what's going on. A great way of doing this is through a live broadcast. It feels fun, it feels engaging and invigorating for your audience. However, just watching a broadcast can sometimes be a little bit boring. So let's make it interactive, and there's a dead simple way in which you can do this. So you use Google Hangout to do your Hangout on air, okay? Real simple, go and set up your Hangout. And then when you click on the links, the list of links, you can find an embedded piece of code where you can embed it onto another website. So go embed that Hangout onto that website. But here's the trick. You can then use a piece of software called Kiwi IRC and point it to a network called Freenode. And what you can do is you can embed a chat channel underneath your Hangout. So when you do your live Google Hangout at whatever time you do it, you can have a chat channel where people can watch, they can share ideas and perspectives from the Hangout, and they can ask you questions as well. It's a great way of creating a really interactive experience for people. So what are you going to do next?
John Bacon. I love John. He was formerly a community manager at Ubuntu. And we had a great interview with him a couple of weeks back on triangulation. We're going to get to our panel on social media and elections in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors, the great folks at lynda.com. I know you watch our programming because you want to learn, you want to know how to do things, and I want to recommend lynda.com as a great place for people who are curious, who are lifelong learners, problem solvers. People want to make things happen. People want to get better at their job or get a better job. You can develop an app, learn how to do that there. You can master Microsoft Office, learn how to code, learn how to sharpen your HTML skills. Lynda.com has everything you need to feed your curious mind. We've mentioned before these great series from Joseph Linaschke, the DIY photographer. So fun. He shows you how you can make a macro lens, a light diffuser, a camera stabilizer out of common household parts for just a few bucks. I'm a big photography buff, so I love lessons like this. The Photoshop 2015 Essential Training, Enhancing Images with Photos for OS X, Adobe Camera Raw Essential Training. There's a new multi-part series for photographers on doing video. So many photographers are looking at that as another way to enhance their art. With a lynda.com membership, you can watch and learn from the best experts in the field. They're passionate about teaching. They're great teachers. And look how beautifully they're shot. They're done professionally. These aren't YouTube videos. This is great stuff. Thousands of courses on demand. You can go beginning to end if you want, or just bit at a time. You can even search the transcripts, and they all have very well-written, readable transcripts that you can search into and find an answer and just go to that point in the video. I love lynda.com. I know you will too. That's why we've got a special 10-day trial for you. 10 days free, the run of the place. Enough time to take a whole course or sample a bunch of them. Visit lynda.com/NSS. That's lynda.com/NSS. 10 days free at lynda.com. I've been really looking forward to this panel all week on social media and politics. Let me introduce our panelists, and then we can kick things in, starting with Vincent Harris. He's a digital strategist for the Rand Paul campaign. Vincent, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you. Rand and his dad were masters at using community to really take over. And then Patrick Ruffini, he's the founder of of Echelon Insights. Hi, Patrick.
Hi.
Nice to see you. You're a consultant that works with campaigns on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I founded a company that ran social media for candidates. Now I'm sort of more on the analytics and measuring side of the equation.
And I understand you have a candidate in the Kentucky gubernatorial election.
I think that might be Vincent.
Oh, is that Vincent? All right.
I do. Yes, I do.
I won't say anything.
Hopefully, we're not going to get into policy.
I just got to tell you, if I were a Kentuckian, my vote would go to this guy, but only because I've known him for years. He was the founder of Fark.com. You saw him many times on the Screensavers, the old Screensavers show. And now he's running for governor. Drew Curtis. Hi, Drew.
How's it going?
Congratulations.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Do you think you might win? I mean, are you trying to win?
Yeah, no, I am trying to win. Both of the candidates are fairly below average and uninteresting and really bad at repeating policy. So I think I've got a pretty good shot.
All right, we won't get into that, Vincent. I'll give you a chance to rebut in a second. Let me ask you, though, we'll start with Drew. How important, I mean, you started as an internet guy. You come to this from the internet. How important is the internet and social media, do you think, to politics this year?
Yeah, so I don't know that most people have figured it out yet, but it's actually extremely vital, especially to independent candidates. And the reason why is, if you think about sort of like how the structure of a political party works, the Democrats and the Republicans are essentially 19th century social networks. They perform exactly the same function. So if you don't have that kind of backing, the only option is to use a social network online, preferably one that doesn't care about politics at all and is more interested in whether or not your message resonates and whether or not you want to reach a lot of people.
That's really interesting. So, Vincent, what about about what Curtis said? Does this mean that political parties are going to erode in terms of their power and influence as people go more digital and online, or is this are the political parties actually going to continue to leverage these primarily and continue to essentially do end runs around the third-party candidates?
Well, there's a great academic study by a political scientist named Natalie Stroud, and she actually talks about, in a 2010 study, what's called selective exposure. And actually, most voters already have preferences, obviously, before they engage online. They're either conservative and Republican or liberal and Democrat. And most voters are using the internet to seek information out that reinforces their pre-existing congruent beliefs. So if you're Republican and you go online, you're actually going to sites like foxnews.com. And if you're liberal, guess what? You're going to sites like BuzzFeed and CNN and MSNBC. So I would disagree with that statement, but I would say that the internet is incredibly powerful this election cycle. You are seeing campaigns spend much more money than they ever have before on social network sites like Facebook. One of my other clients even just spent money on the first paid political Snapchat filter, which we can talk hopefully a little bit about.
So you mentioned that people are looking for reinforcement or validation for their existing political views, but that's kind of problematic in a couple of ways. One of which, for one reason, the big parties have kind of incompatible, different. We see it in the Republican lineup right now. They have somewhat incompatible positions on various things. So that's one thing that kind of marks against the continued dominance of the major parties. But I also wonder about the fundraising part of it. I mean, right now there's so much money in politics, and billionaire third-party candidates, like as we've seen in multiple races now, can enter in and compete and be in the debates. But how about crowdfunding and other forms of online funding? Is that going to change how politics are essentially monetized?
Well, look, I think we should all be very excited from a pro-democracy perspective about the power of the internet in online fundraising. When I worked for Speaker Newt Gingrich during the 2012 race, we had 178,000 donors online. The night that we won the South Carolina primary, we raised $1.5 million online. That's a lot of money. And the internet is really allowing candidates who might normally not be able to compete with the more establishment Wall Street folks like Hillary Clinton, I would say, who's really seeing someone like Bernie Sanders do so well online. I mean, he is raising so much money online from small dollar donors on the left, and then you have candidates like Senator Paul and Senator Cruz and Ben Carson who are doing really well bundling together small dollar donors online too. So really, I think online is obviously key for online fundraising, and it's for fundraising for these campaigns, and it's really serving as a new revenue stream which didn't exist about 10 years ago.
Patrick Ruffini is the founder of Echelon Insights. If you accept that most people, 90, 80 or 90% have made their decision, Democrat or Republican, left or right, then it's the swing voters that are important. How important is social media, the internet, technology in influencing those swing voters and measuring them?
Yeah, no. So There was actually a study out recently, and I think sometimes we use social as a shorthand for the internet.
Right.
You know, we use it for, and there's really a lot of different things that are happening on the internet. When you talk about the fundraising, most of it happens on email. It doesn't really happen on. There's parts of it that happen on social, but most of it happens on email. And when you talk about persuadable voters and how they're finding information, it's really important to look beyond sort of a Facebook page or look beyond a Twitter channel. And some of these networks are still pretty limited in the number of people they reach, and look at search and look at Google Trends and look at search results and see, there was a study that actually showed that, being number one, owning your Google search result was actually the most important thing in terms of persuading undecided voters who are looking for objective sources of information.
Well, wait a minute. Now, explain that. If I'm searching for Drew Curtis, I'm going to find Drew Curtis. What are you talking about when you're saying being number one on your search?
Well, actually, it's not a given. You see candidates who don't who have negative articles.
Well, Rick
them.
Santorum is a good example of that.
Right.
Of course.
So, and with this fragmentation of media, we no longer have a Walter Cronkite. We no longer have the big three network news anchors telling us what to think about the election. People are now turning to, Google is now serving that function, and it is almost completely programmatic. I mean, it's programmatic.
Right.
It's the internet itself actually collectively serving that function as opposed to a single voice. And it's sort of been likened to sort of that Google search results page for a candidate has been likened to the Walter Cronkite role in old in sort of the old days.
Didn't we see, Mike, an article that said Google could actually pick the next president by manipulating its search results?
It would be trivial, and Facebook could as well. As we just talked about, 1 billion users in one day.
Yeah.
They easily could, actually. And those algorithms, by the way, are secret and behind the scenes, and we don't know what they're doing. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think something like that could happen if there was a lot of malice or sort of double dealing in these companies. So, Patrick, quick follow-up. Now, of course, I think the conventional wisdom is that television changed the kind of candidate that could win in national elections. Nixon, during the big debates, looked sweaty and shifty, and he had the 5 o'clock shadow. And Kennedy looked fresh and bright, and that, some say, swayed the election. That may be an overstatement, but still, you had to be telegenic from that point on in order to win the presidency or other national offices. Does social media have its own version of that? Do you have to be kind of like somebody like Donald Trump, for example, who's great on social media, who gets lots of attention?
It may be the reason Donald's getting so much attention
exactly.
right now. Yeah.
Is Donald Trump the new Kennedy in terms of being right for his time in social media?
You earned the prize for being the first to mention Donald Trump. I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to get that. I was actually going to mention that exact same thing. I mean, look at this is a guy who's not running sort of a classic by textbook campaign on any metric, but especially on social media. I mean, he really seems to be posting his own stuff, his own tweets late at night. Sometimes that's pretty questionable, but there's no question about sort of the level of response that he's getting. And look, I don't necessarily look at Donald Trump and see somebody who is, a young, hip, social media savvy person. I look at him and see somebody who is who has been the master for 30 years of manipulating the media, whatever medium that is, whether that's TV. And now it's social media. So we're actually seeing, early on, it was the early adopters on social who were, different than sort of the old stars we used to see. And now it's sort of, we're seeing more traditional media figures actually dominating and learning how to dominate the new social channels.
Drew Curtis, you're a candidate for governor, I think, because of the internet. Without the internet, I don't think your candidacy exists. Am I right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. In fact, we actually in Kentucky have a history of independents making legitimate runs at the governorship. And the last guy who tried it, I went and talked to people who worked on his campaign. Unfortunately, he passed a few years ago. But they said that one of the things he kept running up against was he was locked out by the mainstream media because he wouldn't buy advertising with him. Right. And it wasn't that he was refusing to. The problem was he just didn't have enough money to do it. And if I was trying to run this campaign 20 years ago, it would be completely impossible. But as luck would have it, understanding how social media works, understanding how to launch things virally in a very subtle way, these are really nuanced skills that allow somebody like me to actually have a legitimate shot at winning.
Do you think this is good for democracy?
I think it is, actually, because it's going to allow other people to get in the game that otherwise wouldn't have. And we're actually seeing that here locally. One of my friends is here locally is a guy who runs a website called Kentucky Sports Radio, who, after conversations this year that he and I have had, he's decided to make a house run at the federal level next year. And this is a guy who, he's not a radio guy, he's an internet guy with a radio show. And I think we're about to see the same thing happen, except in his case, he decided to go with a party.
Vincent, do we need elections anymore? And the reason I ask
just
is
have the guy with the most Twitter followers.
Exactly.
Just win.
Count the likes.
Yeah.
And that's a facetious question, but the real question is, does social media absolutely predict success in elections? Can it predict?
So I would say that simply focusing on the vanity metrics isn't going to predict who wins an election. Just because you have the most likes on Facebook or the most Twitter followers or the most folks on Instagram, that's not going to mean that you're necessarily going to win an election. And even search interest, even looking at a site like Google Trends and then seeing if Donald Trump has spiked to high heaven on Google Trends, will he win? Not necessarily, because all that shows is interest. All that shows is people seeking more information out, not necessarily that they want to engage and actually be a part of this campaign. I would say also that it is so loud out there. It is so loud on social media. And one of the things that we found for Senator Paul, who, by the way, as I was listening to the earlier segment and you were talking about privacy, there's not a better candidate on privacy than Rand Paul. But, it is so loud out there. And the real thing that campaigns need to figure out is how do they break through? Because people on social media are on social media not necessarily to engage with a politician, but to see who's breaking up with who and to look at cat gifs. So we have, it's true. So it's just so important that campaigns are producing content that is entertaining and that will break through the clutter. Because if they're not doing so, then they're not even going to be reaching voters, because people now can just easily click off and go back to BuzzFeed.
If I were a cat, I think I'd run for office.
Yeah, you'd have a better shot. Or maybe one of those Shiba-boos. Yeah. Patrick, you've been doing this for a while, and I'm sure you've seen it change. I see the poster behind you says "Innovate or Die." How are campaigns innovating? It isn't business as usual, is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's actually taken longer. I mean, it's sort of that saying the future is here, but it's not evenly distributed yet. So, I mean, I've been doing sort of digital campaigns since 2002, 2004, where we predicted by 2016 that, TV would be this dinosaur that would be out the window by 2016, at the latest 2020. And that actually hasn't occurred. I mean, there's sort of been this slow progression where you do actually see an internet candidate actually can still have an advantage. I mean, he actually could have a significant advantage, because a lot of the existing sort of campaign apparatus is still very focused on TV. So you look at what happened in 2008. Nobody really expected Obama to overtake Hillary the way he did. And now we're seeing maybe the same thing happening with Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary. There's just a poll out in the last hour that has him within 7 points in Iowa, which wasn't supposed to be his strongest state. And he's leading among young people who sort of powered that Obama movement in 2008. You're really seeing most people, every time like an internet candidate takes off, that's the next time that was a fluke, the next time will be different. And you're kind of maybe seeing that happen again with the Democrats.
All right, we're going to wrap up. One final word. I gotta give Drew the final word, only because he's an old friend and I'm biased. If you became governor, I'm sure most of your slate is real world political stuff that needs to be done, jobs, economy, all that stuff. But are you going to do anything for the internet?
Yeah, so it turns out there's a broadband initiative in Kentucky to bring fiber, supposedly to bring fiber across the entire state. I have not had any luck locating, however, a technical specification on it. I used to work on broadband networks. I know how to build them. And back in the envelope math says this thing's got at least $100 million of padding in it. So yeah, the good news is if I get a hold of this thing as governor, I should be able to actually build something that works as opposed to whatever it is they're building right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes.
You often feel like the candidates don't understand technology as much as they'd like to, but you got a guy who certainly understands the internet in Drew Curtis. Nothing wrong with your candidate, Vince. I'm just saying. I don't live in Kentucky, so my vote doesn't matter at all. Hey, I want to thank all three of you. It's really been a fascinating discussion. And what's amazing to me is here we are more than a year from the election, and we're already, gunned up, full bore. This has been going on for a few months now. The first primaries are what? Not till January, February, something like that. I've never seen the political season start so early. I have a feeling it's going to be a lot of fun this time, watching the candidates slug it out.
A lot of cat gifts.
And a lot of cat gifts. Vince Harris is a digital strategist. Nope. Grumpy Cat says nope. Vince Harris is a digital strategist for Rand Paul. You also have a candidate. Go ahead, give him a plug in the Kentucky gubernatorial election.
His name is Matt Bevin. You should check him out, mattbevin.com.
We wanted to be fair. That's fair. Patrick Ruffini is the founder of Echelon Insights. And how many candidates do you have in this cycle?
We're building that out, but I think there will be several.
Yeah, that's exciting. And then you just collapse after the election and sleep for 3 days, or what?
Nobody in Washington really collapses.
It continues forever.
There's always something going on.
You sure you want to get into this, Drew Curtis, candidate for governor in Kentucky for 2015? When's the election, Drew?
It's actually in November, so coming up real soon.
Good luck.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know a governor.
Yeah.
I would like that.
Especially the guy in control of all the bourbon.
Isn't that a dry
Assuming
state?
I don't drink it all.
Hey, thank you, all three of you, Vincent, Patrick, and Drew. Fascinating conversation. I really appreciate it. We're talking a little bit about El Nino.
Yeah.
This is, Californians care a lot about this. We're very aware of El Nino because it's been dry. We're in the middle of a multi-year drought, and the forecasters are calling for an unusually wet winter. But already there have been fires that have killed thousands in Asia, in Australia. We're going to talk a little bit about that. You've got a climate scientist on to talk about what is El Nino, what it means to the entire world. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about Braintree, a great sponsor. We love them so much. My good friend, who was the CTO for the Obama campaign in 2012, Harper Reid, is now working with Braintree, which I think is awfully cool. Braintree is, for mobile app developers, the holy grail. In a mobile app, if you want to add payments, that it's not easy. You want to make your customers happy. You want to make the boss happy, your product manager happy. And you don't want to spend long hours solving problems that have already been solved. That's why I recommend you take a look at Braintree, a full stack payment solution that you can literally implement in your app in just a few lines of code. And this is not untried technology. GitHub uses Braintree and has been since the very beginning. You know who uses Braintree? Uber and Lyft. The great thing is, these are two companies where payments are the business. Making it the transaction to pay your Uber driver painless is what makes Uber such a huge success.
It's not only painless, Leo, it's invisible. It's an invisible feature. When you use an Uber, you never actually interact with the payment process.
My daughter got here. I said, how'd you get here? She took an Uber. I said, oh, how much did that cost? She said, I don't know.
Who cares?
She doesn't have to know. Braintree does it. Braintree is the way to integrate payments into your app, into your platform, and I want you to check it out. Superior fraud protection, customer service, very fast payouts, and oh, by the way, once you install Braintree, you can take anything, PayPal, Apple Pay, Bitcoin, Venmo, credit cards, a couple of lines of code, you're good to go. I love Braintree. In fact, your customers know Braintree already. They just don't know they know it. They already love it. You should check it out. And as a little bit of incentive, if you go to braintreepayments.com/NSS, you can try out the sandbox, see what your app would look like and all of that. But you can also get your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, and that is sweet. braintreepayments.com/NSS. Jason Howell, my esteemed producer, the host of All About Android and Android App Arena, is, as you know, a musician. He has a recording studio in his house. He knows everything there is about digital music recording. And he's got some tips for us on buying audio plugins on the cheap. Watch.
Hey, what's up? I'm Jason Howell. Are you an audio enthusiast? Do you like doing audio production with your computer? If so, I have 3 tips for buying audio plugins on the cheap, because I kind of have a personal rule. I never buy audio plugins full price. Here's how I do it. Number 1, sign up for spam for discounts. You might not want to do that, but if you go to a site like the Waves site or UAD and you sign up for their spam list, regularly they're sending emails to you for flash sales every day. You might get an email depending on the manufacturer or the developer of those plugins, and they're deep discounts, and you'll miss it if you aren't on that list. So do yourself a favor and sign up for those. Number 2, save your money for holiday sales. In my time buying plugins online, I've noticed that the absolute best sales ever come around the holiday season, November to December. And again, if you're on the spam, email lists for those plugins, you're going to see these and be able to act on them. Sometimes they're discounted 70, 80% off the full retail price. I'm telling you, save your money. Don't buy plugins throughout the year and save it for the end of the year. Number 3, and this is a particular site, but one that I check regularly because it's always cheaper here, plugindiscounts.com. Always go here when you see that there's a sale on plugins somewhere else, because they almost always seem to have them even cheaper. Example, today, the Waves Real ADT, it's a new plugin by Waves that I really want. $250 is the full retail price. Waves posted on their site and to their spam list that they have it on sale for $100. That sounds great, $150 off the full retail price. Well, plugindiscounts.com has that same plugin today for $83.36. The trick being that you have to have an account with them and be logged in. It's a free account, but they don't publish their prices unless you're logged in. So you definitely want to sign up for an account at plugindiscounts.com. Anytime you're thinking about buying a plugin, go there last and see how much they're actually beating the price that you thought was a good deal before. My name is Jason Howell, and I hope this helps you be a better audio producer.
Love Jason Howell, one of our most beloved employees. By the way, Jason was excited because Apple, I don't know if you use Logic Pro, but Logic Pro 10 just got a major upgrade on Tuesday. Apple started shipping the Alchemy plugin for that as part of it. It's part of your free upgrade, which is an incredible performance plugin. He was pretty excited about that. Wasn't that fun talking about politics?
That was great.
Do you remember any year where we started this early? This is crazy.
It's awfully early, and it seems to get earlier and earlier every single cycle.
Yeah.
It's just getting brutal. And I think the problem is those darn primaries. They're just so competitive and problematic. Every state has its own peculiarities.
Yeah, you got a caucus, you got a vote. It's all over the place.
Tiny states determine everything.
New Hampshire
the giant
and Iowa
states
are more important than
sit on the
California.
sidelines. Exactly.
Doesn't even matter by then.
Exactly. And the worst part is that candidates have to be super either conservative or liberal to win their party's nomination.
Because the primary voters are the most devoted.
Exactly. They're the hardcore people.
So the liberals and the conservatives vote. But then you can't win an election unless you unite the country.
And you have to be a party person to win. Yeah. So the result is we get leaders who are not leaders, they're followers, and they're flip-floppers. By definition, the only way to get into a national office is to be a flip-flopping follower.
I predict we're seeing the dissolution of all
I
that.
hope you're right.
Because of internet money, and I think you're going to see third-party candidates be able to do great fundraising, great organizing in a way they couldn't do before. That two-party system may be a little bit rickety. I hope so. I think it's one of those things. By the way, you know that our friend Larry Lessig, who is a former Stanford lawyer, he's now at Harvard Law. He created Creative Commons. He has been campaigning to get the money out of politics. Finally realized, he's had a great run with that. Yeah. Finally realized there's no way to do that unless he wins an election or at least runs for office. He's going to run for president.
That's right. And he's got the most unusual campaign platform ever. He's going to quit as soon as he gets his one issue through.
He says, I'm going to pick a really good vice president.
Yeah. Yes.
Just remember, when you vote for me, you're really voting for the vice president. I will executive decree, I will get campaign money out, because you can't do it otherwise.
Right.
Because it's all people who are living on campaign contributions. That's right. So I'll get rid of it, and then I'll abdicate.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't think he has a chance in hell, but God bless you, Larry. You know what? Can we get Larry?
We're trying.
We're trying hard. We want to get Larry on the show. All right. You had a very interesting conversation. Tell us about this.
Well, we talked about El Nino. Everybody talks about El Nino, but who's doing anything about it? I mean, really. And so we talked to...
You can't do anything about it, can you?
No, you can't. But you can understand it. And that's why we talked to somebody who is Noah Diffenbaugh. And he's a brilliant climate scientist at Stanford, and it was a great conversation.
Let's see.
Noah Diffenbaugh is Associate Professor of Earth System Science and Senior Fellow at the Woods Institute for the Environment at Stanford University. That's a long title, Noah, but thank you so much for coming on and explaining something to us that's very complicated. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me.
I'm so glad you're here now. We're hearing a lot about El Nino, and it's a complex phenomenon that everybody talks about, but nobody seems to know what they're talking about. You do know what you're talking about, so tell us, if you can, in a short amount of time, what is an El Nino?
Well, so El Nino really defines, or is defined by the temperatures in the tropical Pacific Ocean. And basically, there's this gradient of temperature in the tropical Pacific, and this affects and is affected by the winds, over the ocean. And essentially in an El Nino, there's a relative warming of the eastern tropical Pacific, so the area over by South America, and the central tropical Pacific out in the middle of the Pacific. And what this does is it flattens out that gradient in the ocean, and it affects the circulation of the atmosphere, and it has really strong effects in the tropics, hot, dry conditions in the tropics, but it also affects weather around the world, and it can certainly affect weather in California. We've seen two of the wettest years in California's historical record have happened in two of the biggest El Nino years, 1997-98 and 1982-83. And that's kind of giving hope that El Nino will bring precipitation to California. We should say the statistics across all El Ninos are not really tight for California precipitation. It's there is some connection with these big El Ninos, but overall it's pretty messy.
Yeah, it certainly is. And, people, this is a farming area where we are here in Petaluma, and people think, well, it just sounds like it's all good. The idea of heavy torrential rains and lots of snowfall potentially from an El Nino type of event. But there's also downsides for heavy rainfall and so on following a drought, isn't there? I mean, it's kind of like not all a rosy picture, is it?
Yeah, so, we certainly are in dry conditions, right? This is the most severe drought that California has had in the historical record, our period of direct instrumental observations, about 120 years. We know we're in the most severe conditions. We also know that in the past, when we've had big El Ninos, again, 1997-98, 1982-83, we got a lot of precipitation in California, and in fact, we had challenges with too much rain in too short amount of time. And so when you combine those two things together, really dry soils, really stressed vegetation, wildfires like we're experiencing right now, combine that with the potential for really heavy rainfall, and California is looking, if we get something like 97-98 in terms of the storm systems, then we're facing kind of the unenviable position of being in drought and dealing with flooding at the same time.
Sounds like fun in a bad way. Now, how are El Nino conditions predicted? It seems climate science, which is what you do, sounds impossibly complex. What's the technology behind these kinds of predictions?
Well, so the climate system is really complex. I mean, it's got millions of degrees of freedom. It's a really non-linear system. And I was in college when that first Jurassic Park movie came out, and Jeff Goldblum talks about, or his character, talks about, well, a butterfly flaps its wings in the Amazon, and it rains in Central Park in New York, and a lot of that is true, or at least the general concept is true, is that there are these non-linearities in these complex systems where little perturbations in the initial conditions, the butterfly flapping its wings, can have these far field effects. And with El Nino, the closer you get sort of into the, if we're thinking about California centric, the closer we get towards our rainy season, then the more likely it is that whatever the current conditions are going to be a reliable predictor of what will happen during the rainy season. And so In terms of technology, the predictions, there are statistical models that are used where basically people have looked at historical observations of different ocean and atmospheric conditions and looked at different lead-lag relationships. Those are the statistical models. That's kind of one class. Then there are the process-based models, so basically solving the equations of motion, F equals ma, on a rotating sphere, and that's the ocean and atmosphere circulation. So those are basically weather models that are used to predict the future of El Nino. The other part of technology that's really important is our observing technology. And this is something where we're seeing more and more with satellite observations, more observations from space that are really help in prediction. We're also seeing in the ocean now there are these floats, and these are really cool technologies where basically you have these instruments that take measurements of the ocean, and they descend and take measurements, and then periodically they rise up to the surface and then transmit their geolocation and all the data that they've collected to satellites. And these are called Argo network of floats. And these are providing a huge amount of new information about what's happening in the subsurface. And those are really critical. And you can think about, for any nonlinear system, the more you know about what the conditions are, the better your predictions are going to be. And so we have this kind of inherent blindness about what the conditions are, and these kinds of technologies are taking away a lot of that blindness.
Interesting. Now, what sort of online resources or apps would you recommend for people who are interested in tracking weather patterns and climate on their own?
Well, for people interested in California, I have to shamelessly promote Daniel Swain, who's a grad student in my group. He's actually he grew up near Petaluma, actually, but this actually isn't even a shameless plug. I mean, he runs the California Weather Blog, which has really become one of the leading resources for the public and other scientists and decision makers for following California weather. So that's weatherwest.com, the California Weather Blog. He coined the ridiculously resilient ridge term that you hear all over the place now. He's the person that really identified that as being a key feature in the atmosphere for the drought. And he's done a lot of research on not only the drought but also the atmospheric rivers that create our heavy rainfall events. So I have to say Daniel's blog is the leading blog. But also, the other thing now with, again, with satellite technology, with radar technology, and then the mobile revolution, of course, there's a lot more information out there in terms of forecasts, particularly near-term forecasts and early warnings. And we're talking about, if we get the kind of El Nino year this year that we got in 97, 98, that's going to be a year like that is going to be a lot of storms, a lot of heavy storms. And what's different now compared to 97, 98 is we have much better ability to make short-term forecasts because we have so much more observations going into those forecasts. But we also have much better ability to warn people, and individuals have better ability to get those warnings. So before there's a flooding event or in these big storms, we can get really, really high waves, big seas along the coast that can be dangerous for people. So there's following the National Weather Service and those sorts of mobile applications with warning systems can really be helpful. And also we're seeing now once a natural disaster happens, we're seeing a real improved ability to locate people. And that hopefully we don't need that during this rainy season. But when we do have floods, when we do have mudslides, there's a risk of people being in harm's way. And the sooner that we can locate them, and the sooner we can get them to safety.
Possible heavy rains, flooding, mudslides, and rising seas, and you heard it all from a guy named Noah. Noah Diffenbaugh from Stanford University. Thank you so much for coming on the new Screensavers.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
So you're saying we should be worried?
Yeah, let's see, put on your hip boots and, yes.
That's the saying, isn't it? It never rains, but it pours. It didn't rain here for months on end, years on end, and now it's going to rain too much.
It has to be said also, we never mentioned this, but it has to be said that a lot of the catastrophic issues around weather and climate and storms and so on is the result of also of overpopulation, people going into different areas, also true of fires and other things. There's a lot more people to be put into harm's way whenever nature comes after us.
Nature almost always wins, I must say. So Google has a way to follow these storms. And I just went there. This is the Google Storm Tracker, and there's nothing going on.
Yeah, so you can relax for now, folks.
There are no storms. It'll be interesting to see what happens this winter. There is an untitled layer. So this shows storms with names. Storms that the National Weather Services have assigned a name to. You have to be a pretty big storm to get your own name. These are untitled storms. This is the storm at Norwalk Hospital, the storm at Colby Cathedral Walkathon, and the Branford Take a Step Day. Those are, apparently smaller storms. It's kind of quiet in the old Google Storm Tracker, but keep that around. I Googled it. It's a long URL. Just Google.
I love it that Google does this kind of stuff.
I love it too. They've done it with the flu.
Yeah.
The flu tracker. You can see how that spreads and so forth. It's pretty amazing. Big data. They love it. Our next caller wants to know how to get the cloud storage. Oh, speaking of storms, on the cheap. But first, a word from our very own Denise Howell of This Week in Law, a new tracker from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Denise?
Hi, folks. Denise Howell here. And do you want to be tracked in your online activities? I don't. I don't think you do. And EFF doesn't think either one of us do. So that's why they've come up with Privacy Badger 1.0. It exists to make sure that your browser's do not track feature is on and that ad trackers are not following you in your activities around the web. Much more information at the EFF site. Check it out. It's called the Privacy Badger.
Denise Howell, you can watch her each and every week on This Week in Law on this very same network, and it is a must watch. Actually, she mentions a Chrome plugin called Privacy Badger. We are going to cover another Chrome plugin Tuesday on Security Now. It's called uBlock Origin. We heard about it from Have you tried it?
I heard about it from you when we were doing Twig.
Now, I have mixed feelings about ad blockers because, after all, we are ad-supported free media. But this thing is amazing. Anyway, Steve's going to give his unbiased opinion on Tuesday on Security Now. But if you want to try it, it's available now. It's for free on Chrome. It's called
The biggest downside
Origin.
of that is that it's not named after a rodent.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's
Privacy
great.
Badger has a good name, and I used it for a while. But uBlock Origin, wow. All right, it's time to talk cloud storage. Our next call for help. And on the line with us, Stan. Hello, Stan. Are you in Scotland or Virginia?
I am in Scotland, Leo.
Nice. But you're from Virginia.
Well, we split our time between Virginia and Scotland. My wife is a professor in Virginia, and she's getting advanced degrees here at the University of Edinburgh.
Ah, how nice. Do you like Scotland?
We just moved here. We just moved into our new flat, our lovely flat you can see behind me.
Yeah.
Yep, on Thursday morning.
Oh, you're brand new. Well, I'll ask you in a year. You're going to get a little rain there, though. I should warn you. It is a little bit rainy, I hear.
It has been fabulous weather here recently. Blue skies and beautiful weather. And the myth about the rain is a little bit of a myth.
You say that now. All right, let's hear it. What is your question for Mike and me?
Well, my wife is a digital artist. She writes and illustrates children's books, and she has a lot of information on her laptop now because we're mobile, and her files are typically between half a gig and a gig each, and she needs a lot of storage. We're not looking for backup. We're actually looking for storage itself so we can have it in one place as she goes back and forth between the two continents. And we really want something that will maximize her ability to bring files down, put them back up, and have them in one particular place. We're not looking for backup, and we've had some problems with that. iCloud is the Apple product. We work with Max here. iCloud is storage is
unpredictable.
Backup.
Unpredictable. Let's say,
yeah.
at the least.
Yeah, but it's
so
also,
what your idea is not a backup solution, but why does she want to store it on the cloud? I guess that would be my question. Why not on a hard drive?
Well, she's working with a MacBook Pro, but her files are huge. And we do have a couple of drives hanging off of her MacBook Pro. We've got a hardened LaCie, the orange thing, and then I've got something else that I use that I do another backup for her. I've got that solution, and she also stores files offline there too. But what we really want is something that allows her to throw things up on the cloud, bring them down, and work on them as she needs them, and keep them off of her MacBook Pro. It's only got 250 gigs, and it's already pretty darn full. We actually even tried GladNet, and I don't know if you're familiar with that service, but they create a huge cache on the hard drive. It fills up her hard drive, SS drive.
Let me interrupt you real quickly, because there's one issue. You said these files are really huge.
Yep.
The upstream bandwidth is going to be the gating factor here. I like the idea of storing things in the cloud. You know, the advantage of storing in the cloud is it's not in your premises, and should something bad happen, a fire or El Nino, and everything's destroyed, the cloud storage is going to stay safe. So I do like cloud storage. Cloud storage has another huge advantage, which is for those of us who work on multiple computers in multiple locations, we always have access to our data. But when you're talking about, what did you say, a half terabyte? How big?
Yeah, half gig to a gig in some cases on some of her files.
So what you're going to have to do is get a calculator out. Do you know what your upstream, not downstream, but upstream bandwidth is at your new place?
Not right now. It's I think it's around 2 to 5, but I'm not 100% sure.
That's pretty typical, by the way. 2 to 5 megabits. That's million bits per second. But that means that's 2 or 5 megabytes. I'm sorry, 2 to 5 megabits per second means how many megabytes per second? We'll have to do the calculator. And then divide that by the amount of data, or into the amount of data. You're going to see that it might not be practicable even to upload and download these files. Download is going to be fairly quick, but upload of a 500 megabyte file is going to take you some time, right?
Actually, it's a huge problem. I completely agree with that, because we had so much trouble trying to upload files in the first place.
So I wouldn't think of it as some sort of quick solution like, oh, no problem, I'm done with the drawing. I can't wait to show it to everybody, and let's upload that and go to coffee, because it may take a couple of hours to get something that big up. Now, we do have Carson's done some spade work, and this is one of the things I've always wanted to have, is a table of cloud storage providers and how much it costs, because the costs are all over the place. For instance, does she use Microsoft Office? Do you have a subscription to Office?
We use Microsoft. We don't have 365 right now, but we could.
Well, I pay for the consumer version. That's $8 a month. That gives me unlimited OneDrive storage. Unlimited.
Yeah.
That's a great deal. So if you're already paying $7 a month for Office, you can put as much as you want on OneDrive. And OneDrive is a very good solution. It makes it easy. They have a synchronizer. It's cross-platform. You might think, I'm on a Mac. What could that possibly offer me? No, they just have OneDrive for the Mac. It works great. So that's a good solution. That is basically free if you pay $8 a month or more for the Office subscription. Dropbox is $100. We're talking about a terabyte. This is what it costs to store a terabyte. You see, Amazon Cloud Photos is free if you're a Prime member, but that's only for photos. It wouldn't count for her drawings. If you wanted to pay for the Amazon Cloud Drive, that's $60 for unlimited storage. That might be the best deal after Microsoft out there. There's always Carbonite, but that's more of a backup solution. It's really not intended for you to copy files up and down. Look how much iCloud costs. $20 a month for a terabyte. It's the most expensive plan out there. So Google Drive is not as cheap as I thought it was, frankly. You know why? Because I get all this free storage because I keep buying Chromebooks and stuff, and I haven't paid for Google Drive yet. MediaFire, $25 a year. That's a pretty good deal. I haven't tried MediaFire. I think your best bet, if you use Office, convert it to the subscription plan and take advantage of the unlimited free OneDrive storage.
Yeah. Absolutely. Unless
Yep,
there's
well-
some other thing like that for Google, if you already have a lot of Google storage or something going on.
Yeah, I bought
like
a
that.
Pixel, right? So I got a
Right,
terabyte
exactly.
for 3 years.
Yeah.
That was a good deal if you
Right.
don't count the Pixel.
Whatever you do, don't use iCloud. That's all I'm saying.
So
agreed.
the chat room's done the math. It's 3 megabytes per second. So 500 megabytes actually wouldn't take all that long. It's going to take 10 minutes. Remember, though, you're not going to be able to use all of that upstream bandwidth and so forth.
Well, and that's really very interesting news. We just switched over here to Windows mobile phones from iPhones, and we obviously have OneDrive because of that, and we just haven't explored that lately or ever, and so I'll look into that now.
Yeah, I love the unlimited OneDrive.
Yeah.
A lot of people do this for free for photos. Flickr is a terabyte free for photos. Amazon Cloud Photos is unlimited. Google Photos is unlimited. But now you tell me she's an illustrator for children's books?
Absolutely.
Tell us about that. I think that's interesting.
Well, she writes and illustrates children's books. She's got about a couple dozen books out. In fact, she just recently released a novel, her first novel for young adults called A Bird on Water Street. But she writes and illustrates typically either one or the other, but she's got several of both. And she does bilingual books, and she's also a professor over at Hollins University over in Roanoke.
How cool is that?
So by bilingual, you mean English and Scottish?
Oh, that's
No, it's
great.
like-
I love that. Now, let me ask you another thing. Does she do this digitally, these illustrations?
She typically starts with a sketch pad and a pen or a pencil, but quickly moves into digital. And I'd say 90% of what she does is in Photoshop.
Interesting. Yeah, I would say for her, it sounds like OneDrive is the best solution. Especially you're using Windows phones, you're almost all there. I use OneDrive all the time, but see, I don't just stick to one. I've got Carbonite, I've got OneDrive, I've got Google Drive.
You don't know where anything is.
Yeah.
I know where everything is.
Oh, everything is
Everything
everywhere.
is everywhere.
That works.
Yeah.
Hey, it's really nice to talk to you, Stan, and thank you for joining us on the show today. I hope that helps.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And let's put that table you did a nice job on that, Karsten, up on our website in the show notes, because I think that's useful. It's so hard. It's like apples and oranges. They quote it in different ways. There's that Amazon Glacier storage, which is really cheap.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird solutions out there, but I think for him, if you're willing to pay the subscription for Office, which I think is a pretty good deal to begin with, it's a great way to go.
It is.
So coming up in just a bit, our next guest invented a Twitter bot that has won hundreds of contests for him. We'll ask him what his favorite prize was. And he's got an Indiegogo for a new car battery that is not lead acid, something very different. Actually, you know what? Can I walk over there now? Or do we have a... Yeah, I should walk over there now. I see snacks. Would you mind? All right.
You can build your energy.
I want some Nature Box. Let's go on over and talk about Nature Box. And we have talked about it quite a bit. In fact, maybe our guests would like some Nature Box. This is the snack that comes to you every month to your door. These are healthy, delicious snacks, nutritionist approved, cinnamon roasted corn kernels. Okay, I got one for you. Whole wheat chocolate chip cookie bites. None of these have high fructose corn syrup. There's never any artificial flavor or colors in these. They're great snacks that you will enjoy eating yourself, and you won't mind giving your kids. Kids love these, by the way. I can't keep them in stock. The mini Belgian waffles. Those are awesome. And watermelon mini stars. These are fruit chews. Now, they have hundreds of snacks, but I want you to get a sample for yourself of Nature Box. All you do is pay $2 shipping and handling at naturebox.com/twit. naturebox.com/twit. Then take a look at the various plans, the monthly boxes, the favorite snacks. By the way, they do have gluten-free snacks. They have vegan snacks. If you like sweet or savory or spicy, you could choose there. So the next time you're hungry, how about a whole wheat chocolate chip cookie bite or a strawberry lemonade fruit star? Get smart about snacking. naturebox.com/twit. And if there's this won't happen, but if there's ever a snack you don't like, they'll let them know they'll replace it in your next box. Easy and satisfying. naturebox.com/twit. Go there right now and get your complimentary box of snacks. I'm really thrilled to have Hunter Scott here along with his partner Alex Newman. We heard about, hi Hunter, welcome. Good to have you on the new Screensavers. Alex, great to see you. You guys have an Indiegogo project. We're going to talk about that in a second. because I'm very interested about this. By the way, congratulations. I hear you just got funded,
Yes,
fully funded.
that's correct. Thank
That
you.
is awesome. That's a tough thing to do in these crowded crowdsourcing days.
Yeah, we managed to do it in about a week, so.
Nice job. But first, I want to ask you about the Twitter contesting. What gave you the idea to do this?
Well, I had seen Twitter contests before.
They say, like, retweet to enter to win a box of chocolates or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm a programmer.
Yeah.
I thought, hey, what if I just tried to enter all of them?
It's not illegal.
No.
You could do it by hand.
Yeah, and there are some people who try to do it, and they'll spend hours searching through Twitter and manually retweeting all these contests, but it's way easier to do that just with Python and Twitter's API. So I hacked it together one night.
So what did you look for in tweets? You're scraping through, you don't get the fire hose. You have to look at a lot.
Right.
How did you know who to follow? You follow a bunch of brands or?
No, it would basically just, I was searching for phrases that looked like they would be contests.
So Twitter's API allows you to just to search all tweets.
Right.
Okay. What did you look for?
So I started out looking for like the first thing I could think of, which is retweet to win.
Right.
And then I started looking for variations on that, like RT and the number 2 win.
Yeah.
And then like, lucky follower or something. And so once I had this big list of potential tweets that were contests, I just retweeted all of them. In some cases, they would say, you have to be following to win. So I would look through it and see if it says follow, then follow them, and then retweet it. So it turns out
How
that
many are these? Is this common?
there are a ton of them. I don't know how many are actually legitimate. In fact, it can't be that many.
Because you didn't win that much.
I won. So I entered over the whole course of the project. I entered about 165,000 contests, and I won on average about 4 per day.
Nice.
Every day for 9 months straight. So a lot of those
Nice.
prizes were not physical things.
That's more than 1,000 prizes.
Yes.
Some of them were, what, a coupon?
A lot of them were like digital things.
A
and
sticker.
yeah, some of them were like really tiny, like you know, swag that you'd see at like a career fair or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was kind of like part of the fun. You never, I mean,
See what you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the most valuable thing you won?
I won a trip to Fashion Week in New York.
Have you taken it?
No, because it was in New York and they weren't paying for flights.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Yeah. And I didn't want to pay the enormous taxes on what they assigned as the retail value for this prize. So
that's the other thing. When you win, you're supposed to pay taxes on
yes,
what you win. That's
which I did.
It's income. You
Because
did?
I knew that as soon as I wrote about this,
Yeah.
that would be the first thing people would say. Like,
How much was
"God,
it?
I'm gonna
Were the
get you."
taxes?
It wasn't that much. It's the value of the prizes that you win,
Right.
and
Not
of the
much.
ones that I actually claimed. Yeah, it wasn't all that much.
What's your favorite?
My favorite was the most unusual, which was a cowboy hat that was signed by all the stars of a Mexican novella. And I'd never heard of it, and that's why I loved it, because it was a perfect example of how totally random and unpredictable the results of this were.
You have it? You still
Yeah,
kept
oh
it?
yeah, I still got it.
You wear it around? All right. Thank you for telling me about that. That is crazy. We all read about it, and I think it's hysterical. But let's talk about what you've been up to, which is really cool. This is called Ohm.
Yes.
What is it?
So this is a replacement for lead-acid starter batteries in your car.
So we all have them.
Yep.
They take maintenance. They wear out. But they have one primary advantage. They have a lot of cranking power. Because
Right.
to start a starter takes a lot of juice.
Right. The only reason that they're as large as they are is because you need to get a lot of current out really quickly.
Right.
And it's just the beginning when you're turning your key to start the engine.
Right. After that,
yeah, your alternator
you could
is
run on the
running.
alternator, really, right? Yeah.
So we kind of started thinking about that. My co-founder Alex actually got stranded.
I got stranded on the side of a road and kind of, called roadside assistance, had roadside assistance, and they said, yeah, you're in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, and it's going to be about 6 hours before we can come out and get you.
Son of a
So
gun.
I'm stuck there with an engineer's mind looking into the hood of my car thinking, I got to fix this somehow.
All the best internet ideas are, whether it's winning Twitter contests or making a better battery, you've got to scratch my own itch, right? This is not right. Technology can solve this. So what did you see as the problem you wanted to solve? The batteries wore out?
It's not just that batteries wear out, it's that they're inherently bad at what they're supposed to do. Like you said, you need this huge starting surge of current. But really, batteries are terrible at that.
Right.
When you start to run them down, you notice that even when you've got a dead car battery, it's not out of energy. You can still run your lights and things like that.
It's the...
Exactly. So supercapacitors, I was kind of fleetingly familiar with them beforehand, and I realized that they solve that much more elegantly because they can't store a huge amount of energy like a battery can, but they can deliver it as fast as you want it.
Right.
So by pairing those with a battery instead, you can get a much more reliable system. And as an added benefit, it lasts twice as long, weighs a whole lot less, and is pretty much immune to temperature.
So is this the inside of the ohm we're looking at here?
Yes, this is kind of the show and tell guts of what's in there.
And so this is really pretty much off-the-shelf parts, right?
Yeah, the supercapacitors are here, and yeah, we're
I
using
shouldn't
those.
touch them. Am I going to?
Well, as long as you don't touch
Are they
this
discharged?
part, you'll be okay.
Okay.
I mean, it's at 12 volts, so you're not going to get shocked,
Okay.
but you're wearing a wedding ring and you wouldn't want to short it out. That would be
no, whatever that is, I don't want that. So how many volts are in these capacitors?
So each one of these capacitors is 2.7 volts, and we've got them in series.
Okay.
So
6 times 2.7 is the total voltage coming out of this. Okay.
Normally, yeah, your car battery is about 12 or 13.2
Right.
volts. And
how
then,
many amps?
They can deliver a huge number of amps. So really all the current comes from these, and then because we can't store as much energy as a battery can, we have a battery, which is this part down here.
And these are lithium ion phosphate.
These are lithium iron phosphate, yeah.
Iron phosphate.
Yes. Okay. And then we've also got some control circuitry and stuff in here. Some of that is not on this model. Some of it is right here.
You know, one thing about a car battery, it's heavy.
Yeah.
This is a lot less heavy than a car battery, like a quarter of as much, right?
It's actually a sixth.
A sixth.
So the average car battery weighs nearly 40 pounds.
Wow.
Our entire battery solution is going to weigh about 6 pounds.
There's an
a little
advantage
bit
to that
under.
because you're spending money on gas to transport a 40-pound battery around.
You have no idea. About like 1% of all the gas used in the world is just hauling around that extra weight of batteries.
Just for the cranking power.
Exactly.
Wow.
Use it for 2 seconds when you start your car, and that's it.
We'd heard about supercapacitors. In fact, Steve Gibson, our Security Now guy, was very excited about these as maybe a new way to store phone battery juice because they're so quick to charge.
Yeah.
If you throw enough volts at them, you can fill them up almost instantaneously, right? Enough watts.
Right.
So how do these work? How are they being charged by the lithium iron phosphate battery?
Yeah, the battery up here, when your engine isn't running, will essentially keep these topped off.
So it's trickle charging these all the time.
Right, and then when you start your car, your alternator turns on and it recharges both the battery and the supercapacitors.
Right. Cool. What's the lifespan of something like this?
We're thinking it's going to be around 7 to 10 years. We still need to do a little bit more
That's
testing.
good.
Yeah.
It's a lot better than a liquid, an lead acid battery. Yeah. No maintenance?
No, maintenance free.
How is it in the cold?
It's fantastic.
Because that's a big problem, isn't it? With lead?
Yes, absolutely. So batteries in general, they run on this chemical reaction, and at low temperatures, it's harder to run that.
Right.
Capacitors function on a different principle, and so they're not constrained by temperature, so they work fantastically at cold temperatures.
So you put this on Indiegogo,
Yeah.
as any sensible person would, because this is a better idea, right? And what was the response?
It was great. We were a little nervous because we didn't know how many people would pre-order a thing that normally when they need it, they have to go to the store right now and go buy one.
Right. I want one. Can it just go in any car? Do you have to do anything?
Yeah, we have a bunch of these things, prototypes that we've been out testing this summer. They're driving around about 12 cars right now. And yeah, so it's a perfect drop-in replacement. You don't have to rewire anything or do anything different.
So you wanted to get $50,000 already. You still have 18 days to go. As we speak, you've got 51,667. Are there stretch goals on this, or
yeah,
do I get a T-shirt?
Well, if we got enough interest, we would love to release a motorcycle version. We've had tons of questions from people saying, the second you make one, I'll buy one. So it's just a matter of getting enough interest together.
Now, a car battery, a lead-acid battery, is not very expensive. 50 or 60 bucks, right?
It's actually much higher than people think.
How
People
much?
think it's around there. So the Walmart special is going to be around $90 these days, but the O'Reilly's by us, the cheapest battery on the shelf is about $120.
So you're not, so at 200 bucks, which is that what you hope to charge for this?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not so much over the cost of a
No,
regular
there's
battery.
another brand of lead-acid battery called Optima that has stuff in the range of $200 to $300. So that's kind of where we're shooting for right now.
Okay.
But
if you get to Indiegogo right now, you get it for $199.
Yeah.
Now, one thing we always talk about with crowd-funded projects is it's one thing to come up with an idea and build a prototype. It's a whole nother thing to manufacture it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm always worried because a lot of times you get great smart guys like you and you got a brilliant idea, but now you have to go to China and build it.
Right.
Are you ready for that?
Yeah, we're getting into that. That's part of the reason that we've been doing all this testing and stuff this summer. So basically, our to-do list is get to the design for manufacture, which is when you make sure that the mechanical design and the electrical design can all actually be manufactured at scale. And we are also still undergoing testing right now to make sure that it works over temperature as we expect, and to do life cycle environmental vibration testing.
There's a lot to go into this, yeah. And this is what you anticipate it'll look like. This is your prototype.
Yeah, this is our little...
And this would work in any car, right? Can I sit and, as the chat room, somebody in the chat room says, bump my tunes? How long can I sit in the car and listen to music or read
a lot of time is the answer.
Is it the same as a lead-acid battery?
It's a little bit less capacity, but really you rarely use that in a lead-acid battery.
Right.
So this is 10 amp hours, and that'll enable you to listen to music for about 5 to 6 hours without any concern. And the great thing is you can use this without worrying about whether your car is going to start or not. I mean, you can, with the lead-acid battery, you can run your lights and kind of leave it there, but there's always kind of the risk in the back of your head, is it going to start once I stop using it?
Do these capacitors hold a charge, or do they leak?
They leak. Everything leaks. Everything is not
So how
ideal.
long will they hold a charge? Do you know?
Yeah, so it's about a year is the answer. It's a lot lower than people think it is. It's
so
a
I can
non-issue.
deplete this battery and still start my car, because all the cranking power comes from the capacitors. Is that right?
Well, it's actually kind of the opposite. So we store all the energy in the battery, and we'll selectively see if you're starting to run it low, we'll electrically disconnect it. And then once you want to start your car again, we'll transfer energy back over into the supercapacitor.
I see.
And at that point, since they're really providing the cranking ability, you can still start your car, even if there's almost no charge left in the battery.
That's very cool. I gotta say, I imagine that Delco or somebody's going to come, Interstate's going to come along and either try to put you guys out of business or buy you guys, right? Have you heard from any of the big battery companies?
No, we have not.
Radio silence.
Radio silence. That's always a concern. Patent concerns at all? Has anybody else? You've, I'm sure, done a patent search, right?
Yeah, we think it's fine. We don't really want to compete on that front, but we do have a provisional patent in for...
You always have to, don't you?
Yeah.
It's sad. And that's one of the things that kills innovation sometimes in this country, is the fear of getting a patent troll after you.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think this is great. If people search on Indiegogo for, what should they look for?
Ohm.
Ohm, O-H-M. And a car battery that never needs to be jumped. Could you jump start this if you had to?
Yeah, you can.
You can.
Should need to, but...
But you could if you had to.
Yeah.
AAA could come out and they'd look at the battery and say, well, that's weird, but they could still connect the things and jump start. Yeah. That is very cool. Ohm, as Padre says. Hey, I wish you all the best, Alex and Newman and Hunter Scott and Ohm. And I feel like that is something that the world really can use. And you guys have the chance of being billionaires in the next couple of years. So just remember who helped you in the beginning.
All right.
All right?
We'll remember the little people, don't worry.
No, honestly, I feel like this is a brilliant solution. Good
Thanks.
luck. That's
Thanks.
great. All right. We're going to take a little break. When we come back, it's final questions and answers. But first, my buddy Patrick Norton with something called an OBD. Oh, my goodness. What is that?
Hey, everybody. Patrick Norton here from techthing.com. TEKTHING.com is the place to find it. And I want to talk to you about what to do when you see the check engine light on your dashboard, right? You're going along, bink, the check engine light comes off, and all you can think is, I'm about to spend $9,000 at the dealership or the local auto mechanic. No. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to Amazon.com, and you're going to do a search for Elm 327, and you're going to find probably something like the BAFX blah, 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 blah OBD2 reader. OBD2 is really cool. Since 1996, every car has an OBD2 jack. This is an old school OBD2 reader. It's USB. This is like an antique now, but what you care about is this jack, which has to be within 3 feet of the steering wheel. That's your OBD2 port. You plug your OBD2 reader into the OBD2 port, and then using some software, I particularly like Torque running on Android, you get information and you get a code. The code is what triggered that check engine light. If you can figure out what the code is and what it means, you can fix that part. Or more importantly, if you go to a dealership or to your local auto mechanic, you can see whether or not they're being honest about what they're trying to charge you for. Now, what's really cool about these like Elm 327 based adapters that are so cheap now, you can buy them for as little as $6, $16 with Amazon Prime, sometimes less. it's amazing because you can use programs like Torque on your Android device to create sets of gauges for your automobile. So you can create your own complete custom set of gauges monitoring all kinds of cool engine features inside of your system. If you're a gearhead, you can pretty much monitor any single thing going on inside the engine that's monitored by the computer. It's really, really cool. It's called OBD2. You need a code reader, and Elm 327 is kind of the cheap standard out there, and Torque is a great place to start if you're on Android.
Patrick Norton of TechThing.com, TekThing.com. Actually, I'm not as car crazy as Patrick is, and I'm certainly not as sophisticated as Patrick is. But I've been using OBD readers for some time. This is one that was, I think, a Kickstarter called Automatic. They're still around. They originally were the first OBD reader for iPhone, and they had their own software. And the software is getting better and better now. They, for instance, have a teenage driving trainer program that goes hand in hand with
I wish I had that when my kids were teens. And they also are on their second version of the hardware. So.
Right. This is the first, so I'm sure it's better. And then, but this was 99 bucks. This I got on Amazon for, I don't know, 40 or 50 bucks. It was very cheap. And with the Dash software, which is available on iOS and Android, you can do a lot of things, including, and you might think I'm nuts, and I'm sure a lot of people do. I now tweet when I arrive at the studio. Automatically. So this is, you can use the software to, it says, it's a little annoying, but you're accelerating too fast, or you just braked too hard, and it gives me a grade after every trip. Yeah. That's good for reducing gas usage, right? But I've used if this then that, there's the tweet. And I thought, well, it'd be kind of cool because a lot of times I'm late. Yeah. This way you look at my Twitter and John will know to put away the booze because Leo just pulled up out front.
We go scrambling like cockroaches when we see that tweet.
So Patrick's using it for like hardcore stuff, like looking at engine torque. But you can even use these for silly things, especially since the Dash software that works with these OBD links has an if this then that. It's programmable. Yeah, I have every time I take a trip, it enters all the trip details in an Evernote notebook, and I'm not going to tweet that. Don't worry. Mike Elgin, it's been so fun having you. You want to do a final little email thing?
Yeah.
Okay, why not? Let's have the mailbag. Isn't there like a thing that goes mailbag?
Isn't there a mailbag?
No, it's a mailbox. We should call it. By the way, I want to thank the, Lisa hasn't noticed yet, but I'm wearing a Tennessee Titans shirt. And I want to, because football season, we're getting underway. What do they don't call it spring training. Preseason is underway. Niners are going to play tonight against the Broncos. And the guys in the band Diamond Rio brought me this many years ago on the Call for Help TV show. So if I had a Niners shirt, I would wear it.
But that's very fetching.
If I had, it's fetching. We actually have some Titans fans in the studio audience today. All right.
It's locked.
I need more Dinty Moore stew. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. All right. Here, you take one.
All right.
And I'll take one. And why don't you begin?
All right. Okay, Randy says, I'm a middle school teacher in a suburb in St. Louis, Missouri. I was wondering if you could tell me the most effective way to communicate to my parents in this digital age. By my parents, Randy means the parents of the kids. We are, because, who wants to talk to one's own parents?
Got it, yeah.
We are now starting to create Google Calendars for each teacher, but for a parent to subscribe or view all the calendars of teachers, each student may have 7 teachers, which means 7 calendars. Please help us. As of right now, we use email and remind.com to communicate. And final note, we are a 1-to-1 Chromebook school. I guess that means 1 Chromebook for every student. I think that's what that means.
Yes.
And are you familiar with remind.com?
I'm not. Do you know that?
Yeah, it's a great site that basically lots of, I think maybe even the majority of schools now use this, but it sends information to the parents and the students about homework assignments and stuff to their phones. It's a really great
And it works with Google Calendar?
I think the Google Calendar thing may be separate. I think they're just doing straight Google Calendar.
Because Google Calendar could do reminders too, couldn't it?
Yeah.
The problem really is, I don't want to subscribe to 7 different calendars. No. It's going to mess up my calendar. I'd really like to have something separate and standalone.
Google Calendar is not a good solution. And I think that, I think one of the problems is you both, in a situation like this, you want to distribute the information, but you also want a central place where they can go get the information as well. And so one possibility, and I don't know what the particular needs or requirements or capabilities or inclinations are of the students and teachers and so on, but I love the blogging platform. They're free, open, and easy to do. So if you had a blog with the kind of information that's being emailed, then you can use MailChimp. MailChimp has something called RSS to email. And what they'll do is you take the RSS from your blog, and they'll automatically send those emails for you. You'll have the place where people can go and see everything.
They can
in
always
one place,
read the blog.
but they'll also get the email with no additional work on the part of the teachers or whoever's doing this stuff. And that's all that I can think of that can help this. In the meantime, I would say keep using Remind.com. That's a great app, and I think a lot of teachers and schools are really happy with it.
MailChimp is free for non-commercial use in a small
right.
number of emails like this.
That's right.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that, boy, I wish there were more help for schools. Mostly schools do this when they've got one teacher who's an advocate, who understands technology, is a geek like you or me, and sets it up and kind of shepherds it through. And I would hope that every school would have one person like that, because that makes a big difference in the school. But maybe we can, I think that sounds like a good solution. There's also Moodle, which is an open source it was created, I think, to compete with Blackboard, which is a closed source, proprietary and expensive solution. Moodle is free. It's kind of ugly because it's open source, but it's highly customizable. But again, you need to have somebody in the school, I think, who's willing to say, okay, I will take on, if you're not a geek already, I will take on the task of learning Moodle, learning how to use it, administering it, and all of that. But that is at least a solution that you could use and would have all of those features as well. It's more aimed at a school.
And I love the fact they're on Chromebooks. I really do think that Chromebooks are a great solution. And they are growing a gazillion times faster than Microsoft or Apple solutions. Apple is the leader currently in terms of making money from schools. Microsoft is a leader in terms of actually installed devices. But that's by next year, we're going to hear that Chromebooks are ahead of Microsoft in devices, and everybody's still going to be behind Apple in terms of revenue.
Huge growth this year in 2015, the first half of 2015 for Chromebooks, so much so that they, for the first time ever, eclipsed new Windows installations.
That's right.
I think that's great. I think a Chromebook is a perfect solution. It's sad, Michael's, our son's school, he's a 7th grader, just shifted from a 2-to-1 Chromebook program to a 1-to-1 iPad program. Wow. Talk about increasing costs. They must have gotten a grant or something. Here we go from Jason. He says, hello, Leo. I am a professional broadcaster myself. I noticed in your first episode there's a lot of white noise in your audio feed. By the second episode, this noise was gone. You know, in my own setup, I plug my mics directly into my mixing station, and then the mixer is plugged directly into a computer. I, too, however, get this white noise. I'm wondering what you guys did to get rid of the white noise in your live broadcasts. Thanks in advance, Jason. I don't know.
I hope this isn't a question about diversity in broadcasting.
I want more white noise. Brian Burnett is our technical director. Perhaps he has an answer to the question. Brian?
Well, here we use Premiere Pro, so it probably might differ a little bit, but when I get some...
That's for post. That's editing after the fact, right?
Yeah. I mean, we get a little bit of hiss sometimes.
Well, I breathe into the microphone a lot. Sometimes I pound my chest.
Yeah, but sometimes there's weird white noise that we get, and usually I use a high-pass filter.
Right.
And around between 75 hertz to 100 hertz, and that'll usually clean it up. Other noises, like maybe AC or something, I might use a low pass at 12,500 hertz, but it kind of depends on it. But that's all we really do to clean up the audio afterwards.
I wonder what those white noise hits were. Do you know, John, what was going on? Why we were getting white noise?
There was no problem, says John.
Nothing went wrong. So understand, we're using wireless mics, and I would guess, unlike your setup, Jason, I would guess that those hits were RF hits. Sometimes that happens with wireless mics. Wireless mics are a nightmare. You remember that scene in Spinal Tap? They're playing the Air Force Base. Yeah. He's rocking and rolling. He's got wireless mics on his guitar, and all of a sudden he says, "Number 53, you're next on the runway." Wireless mics are a nightmare. So
They're for everybody. If you're presenting, you don't want to use wireless mics. Don't use wireless mics.
but I don't know why he would be getting it in a wired situation. So, Jason, I'm afraid we're not much help to you. But I do thank you for the email, and I thank you, Brian, for fixing my bad audio.
That's okay. You're the one that told me to do it.
I think, by the way, it's the other way around. I think we use a high-pass filter to cut the low the rumble.
Oh, that's right.
And a low, well, it passes through the high frequencies but blocks the low, and a low-pass filter to block the.
I wouldn't know. I'm just talent.
I'm rapidly becoming that too. I don't know. We just I do this thing, and then it turns out to be a podcast.
That's my approach.
Mike Elgin is the director. He is no amateur when it comes to tech news. This guy knows his stuff for many, many years. I've always been a fan, and we're so glad that you're part of the Twit family. Tech News Today, every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 1700 UTC.
Don't miss it. Don't miss it.
Daily dose of tech news. I'm not going to be here for the Apple announcement.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. Why are they even holding one when you're not going to be here?
Did they know? Did they plan it when Leo was out of town? Anyway, I hope you will hold down the fort. You're going to have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
And I will be watching, and I will be actually very interested in what Apple announces on September 9th, because I need a new iPhone.
Yeah.
I gave my son my iPhone 6.
Big mistake.
And I know. And I'm going to be in New York probably 3 in the morning on Friday the 18th or the 11th going, gonna be in, I gotta buy one. You gonna get the rose gold?
I absolutely am.
The rose gold?
Oh yeah, rose gold, for
that's
sure.
what I
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you everybody for joining us. We do the new Screensavers every Saturday afternoon after the radio show. So it's about 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern time. That would be 20, I don't know. It's the middle of the night.
Something. It's late.
It's 2200 UTC. You can watch it live on twit.tv/live. You can chat in the chat room, irc.twit.tv. We love it when you do. But if you can't watch or participate live, and by the way, if you'd like to be in the studio, for some reason we only have 3 people in the studio tonight.
It's a beautiful day out there.
Maybe that's it. They just didn't want to be stuck inside.
El Nino's coming. Don't worry. We'll have people packed in here, huddled masses.
If you need to get out of the rain, email tickets@twit.tv. We'd love to have you. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on the new Screensavers. Bye-bye, everybody. All 3 of them just applauding like crazy. Woo.